All right, Wes, you ready to wrap things up with the pulse check, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I got the low, you got the high this month. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
All right, then I'll go first. And just in case you guys don't know what the pulse check is every month we take a look at two retro games or semi-retro games. We look at a higher price one and a lower price one, just to kind of see where the market's at. This week I got the lower price one, and I'm happy to say I choose Tomb Raider for PS3. Now there was a 360 version also, which I'll mention the prices briefly on, but the PS3 one is unbelievably cheap, and the game is unbelievably good. Like, it's very, very good. This was the reboot of Tomb Raider, so it's not like there was a new Tomb Raider that just came out, a Tomb Raider trilogy where they like remade the original games.
Mm-hmm.
Not talking about that. This is a
Just,
reboot.
just Tomb Raider.
Right, it's just called Tomb Raider. It is a reboot, and it was for PS3 and 360. The game is, let me get it pulled up here, Wes. Let me go over the Xbox prices really quick. Just the complete in box one so you guys know where we're at. The complete in box Xbox 360 version of the game today is $14. That's the higher priced one. PS3, loose, we're looking at $3. Wes, $3 bills.
Wow.
Complete in box, put you back a cool $6. Wes, you can't even buy McDonald's today for $6, sir.
Now you can go to Wendy's and get a 4 for $4.
Yeah, that's about your own hope.
That's about it.
A sealed copy, sealed, new, $13. And this game is very, very good. I mean, this was inspired by Uncharted. It was a reboot of Tomb Raider.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they took Lara Croft in a lot more serious of a role and stuff. When she dies, it's unbelievably brutal. Like, just oh my god, like it's like gut wrenching how she dies.
It
Like,
was.
and stuff.
It was good. It was really, really good.
This was
But
one
like
of
you
my
said,
favorite PS3 games, Wes.
yeah, it was. It definitely took some cues from Uncharted because a lot of people compared Uncharted to Tomb Raider in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, it's basically Tomb Raider with a guy with like nicer graphics. But then they rebooted Tomb Raider and they're like, oh, it's basically Uncharted with Lara Croft in it. So, but it was good. It was really, really good. But my question is, why is the Xbox 360 one complete in box more expensive than the PS3?
I think two things happened. One, the first thing is this: PlayStation has a legacy with Tomb Raider. I think it sold way more copies on PlayStation than Xbox. I think that was one thing. So there's just more copies available.
Mm-hmm.
The second reason is the Xbox 360 version of the game was probably just not as sought after as the PS3 one overall. Like, I just think it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. That character's just not as familiar with Xbox. The sales probably just weren't there, and people just probably like, yeah, whatever. It's Tomb Raider. Xbox 360 was for the most of that life cycle of those consoles was the most popular console until you get towards the end. And if I remember correctly, I do think that this game was towards the end, which means PS3s may have been outselling 360s at this point as well.
Okay. Yeah, it's odd that the 361, the complete in boxes, $14 and the PS3 was only $6. But I mean, wondering.
I don't know, but to my point, I think they sold more. The character's more iconic on PlayStation.
Yeah,
I think that's all it has to do with.
But at any rate, hey, it's cheap. Go buy it,
dude. $6. I'm telling you, it's one of the best games I played on PS3, and it's $6 complete in box. You're not going to find a better deal than this. Wes, what was your pick of this month?
So my high pick this month was everybody knows I'm a comic book fan and I love Batman. So I went with The Adventures of Batman and Robin on the Super Nintendo.
Now this game came out on Genesis twice and Super Nintendo once. And the Genesis twice was a cardboard version and then their traditional plastic cases. So
Yep.
continue. Go for it.
Yeah. So I'm the one I'm actually going to be talking about is the Super Nintendo version, but I will compare the Genesis version because they were both titled The Adventures of Batman and Robin, but they were made by two different developers, and the games played completely different.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, completely different. So,
But the version of Genesis you're talking about it will be the cardboard one, correct?
correct.
Okay.
The Super Nintendo version was a uh, side-scrolling action game. Very reminiscent art style of the cartoon Batman the Animated Series. The music was great. It was a good game. It was a very fun game. I prefer the Genesis one. The Genesis one was a little bit harder, but at any rate, it was still a good game.
Was the
So
Genesis one also kind of based off the animated series as well? No.
yes, it was.
Okay.
Yep. But as far as pricing goes, Adventures of Batman and Robin for the Super Nintendo, we're talking loose, just a cartridge, $118.
Mm. That's definitely up there.
Loose. Loose. Yeah, man. Um, Complete in box, $495. Sealed, we're talking 1650, $1,650 for a Super Nintendo game, Adventures of Batman and Robin.
You
Now,
sealed collectors are crazy. I can't imagine paying. Can you imagine paying over $1,000 more because it got some plastic on it, Wes?
I no, because I'd want to rip it open and play it,
Maddening.
especially that one. But in contrast, I'm just going to touch on the Genesis one because again, there was Adventures of Batman and Robin for the Sega Genesis. We're going to be talking specifically about the cardboard version, and you're talking a loose Genesis cartridge for that game. You're talking $60.
Pretty high for a loose cart, but not
It's
comparing it to the Super
to the
Nintendo
Super
one.
Nintendo like at 118. I know. The complete in box, $102. $102 compared to almost 500 for the Super
A
Nintendo.
$400 difference.
That's a lot, man.
That
That's
is
a
a lot.
lot.
And we're
That's
talking
a
about the
big
cardboard
gap.
version of the Genesis. So both of them have cardboard cases.
Both of them had cardboard cases, and the sealed, if you can find it, is $499. We'll say 500. And when we say cardboard version, because the Genesis had the hard plastic clamshell cases,
Yep.
and then they switched to more of a cardboard slide out type of kind of box.
Right. To probably save some money and reduce the cost of
Yeah,
producing them.
the cartridge sat in the middle. There was like a little cutout, and you put your cartridge sat in the middle, and the instructions was like underneath that,
Mm-hmm.
and it just
Mm-hmm.
like slid out. But yeah, so that's the version that's more sought after, and it's because it's the condition of the box is, that's it. They're so hard to keep in decent shape.
Yeah, you're gonna pay more for the condition of the box. So I guess it's possible that the SNES version just happened to have better boxes, and that's why they're selling for more than the Genesis ones. Maybe that's what's going on. I have no idea, but
I mean,
that's all I can
Bat-
think of.
that's crazy. But Batman has always been popular. He's always been a popular character. But $118 for a loose cartridge, that's kind of high. 500 for a complete in box. I mean, we're talking. That's crazy. That's insane.
Yeah, I know. I would never pay this price. I mean, I wouldn't pay this price for most games. I just even when you're like it's $60 for the cart, I'm like, no, I'm not paying you $60 for a loose cart. I'd more likely pay you $100 for the one that comes with the cardboard Genesis case.
Yeah, yeah.
But $500 for dude, I'm not saying I wouldn't spend $500 on a game. I probably would, but there's so few West that it would. There's no way it's that game. There's no way. No way.
My question is, what is driving that price up? Is it a low print run?
Maybe.
Is it? Yeah, because it was put out by Konami. The Super Nintendo was put out by Konami, and it was just it. Yeah, that's what is driving that price.
I feel like part of it's just the Nintendo factor. Like, just look at the games.
Okay.
Anytime there's a game on Nintendo, it's almost always worth more. Almost the reverse, right, Wes? Let's talk about the reverse. Every time there's a game on Xbox, which especially during the original Xbox was a much better version of the game,
Hmm.
always worth the least. Always worth the least. No one
True.
cares.
Yeah.
It's just the Nintendo fact. Like, that's my personal opinion. That
Okay.
it's a lot of it probably has to do with that.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I don't know. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I could go with that. Just I may have to do a deep dive one day and like really dig into like what is driving that price of 500 compared to $102 for same title, different game. Uh, because there's another example because we had Aladdin, for example, Aladdin for Super Nintendo
Mm-hmm.
and Aladdin for Genesis. They were completely different games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Genesis one was way better.
Way better. All you Super Nintendo people out there for the Aladdin game, you're all nuts. You're insane.
So that's got me thinking. I'm curious to see what the price difference is on those. So I may have to look those up.
Well, let me know what you find, Wes. That'll definitely be some interesting news to hear.
Yes, sir.
Um, and that pretty much wraps up our show. So I just want to thank you for joining us today, Wes. I appreciate you as always.
Yeah, man. It's always fun talking about games.
Absolutely. Where can people find you if they want to follow you?
You could follow me on Instagram at Grendel5XBX. And like I mentioned, if you're ever in the Atlantic City area of South Jersey, stop on by Level Up Entertainment at the Hamilton Mall. Let's talk shop. Let's talk video games. Let's talk comic books. Love it.
I'm Matt. You guys can follow me at from AJ to CA. The 2 is a number 2 over on Twitter or X or whatever you would like to call it. Please consider following the company as well. It's at Nerdthusiast on all social media platforms. Consider your support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Nerdthusiast. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. I just want to give a quick special shout out to Peter for your support this month. Peter, thank you so much. We appreciate you over there on Patreon. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Peter.
And just a reminder again, you guys can support us on free feeds as well. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star review if you like what you hear. If you heard what you heard today. Thank you guys so much. And until next time, y'all take care.
Have a good one, guys.